Hello and welcome to Playlists, a 9-part series of programmes exploring different musical genres. My name's Andrew and I'm with the Irene Taylor Trust. Since 1995, we've been working with prisoners, former prisoners and young people in the community. Through creating original music, our musicians work alongside these groups to support them in telling their stories. We believe that creating music collaboratively can have a powerful and positive impact on people's lives. Each of these 9 programmes will focus on one broad genre of music, with a viewpoint to introducing you to different styles of music you might not have heard of and some artists that might be new to you. We've done this to give you a chance to listen to new music as well as learn a little bit more about different genres, which might open your ears to different styles of music you hadn't previously thought of listening to. It might also help you to develop your own songwriting, if that's something you do. Some of the genres we'll be covering include hip-hop, grime, classical, rock and global. So some you'll know and others you'll be less familiar with. You'll have the opportunity to listen and respond to some of the songs in this episode. So if you want to write down your answers or take notes, feel free to grab a pen now. If not, sit back and enjoy. In this episode, we'll be focusing on the blues. We'll be exploring the history of the genre, notable blues artists and tracks, as well as hearing an original piece of music that's been specially created for this programme. I'll be joined by musicians to discuss different aspects of the genre, which will give you ideas if at any stage you have the inspiration to write a track in this style. I'm joined by Sara Lee, the Artistic Director of the Irene Taylor Trust, who has been delivering and overseeing the running of music projects in prisons for over 35 years. Hello, Sara.
Hello, Andrew.
In this episode, we're focusing on the blues. I know the blues can be popular in prisons, maybe via Johnny Cash, but do you find that that is true?
Yeah, blues seems to be synonymous with prisons, I think. And I don't know whether it's because it's a really recognisable genre and actually something which, after a bit of practice, you can get quite good at playing. Certainly when we go into prisons, if we meet a prison band, they will always have 1 or 2 blues tunes in their repertoire. But the repetitive nature of the blues and the fact that the chorus just keeps going and going and going leaves some really good options for soloing and also some really good options for lyric writing. And that makes the genre a really fun one to work in.
The musical form known as the blues began in the 1800s, shortly after the end of slavery in 1870s. Blues came together as a melting pot of work songs, field hollers, spirituals, protest songs, and storytelling approaches and techniques that have their roots in various African traditions. At its origin, it was principally performed in the rural deep south of America by African Americans on acoustic instruments, mainly guitar, piano, harmonica, banjo, and a cappella, unaccompanied voice. With the newfound freedom of African American musicians, blues spread from the country to the cities and became electrified, becoming increasingly popular in cities such as Chicago and New Orleans during the 1930s and 40s. Famous blue players include Robert Johnson, Blind Lemon Jefferson, Bessie Smith, Howlin' Wolf, Muddy Waters, John Lee Hooker and B.B. King. Various record companies, including Chicago's Chess Records, helped to popularise what was termed race music, with diverse audiences in the 1960s and 70s. Many famous British artists, such as Eric Clapton, the Rolling Stones, took the blues back to the USA as part of the British invasion, playing the blues to white audiences who had largely ignored the blues for many years. Musically, blues tends to follow a 12-bar pattern which repeats for the duration of the song, often uses call and response, where a phrase is played and then responded to with an answering phrase. The influence of blues is wide-ranging and has inspired many subgenres and can be heard in many forms of contemporary popular music. It's hard to imagine Rag and Bone Man's Human without the long-range influence of the field holler, for example. So, here we are. Next, we'll be talking with a series of musicians who work with the Irene Taylor Trust to get a greater idea of what makes up this genre of music. Hi, I'm joined by Mark, who is one of our musicians, and Patricia, who's been working with us since her release to talk more about the blues. So, Mark, where does the blues originate from, and what does it mean to you?
To me, well, the blues, it's a strange thing, is I think most people sort of have an understanding of what the blues means. I mean, it tends to mean we're a bit down. It's also come to mean lots of other things. People seem to have an innate understanding of it. Mm-hmm. I think the term came from, I mean, some of the earliest mentions of it are in the 1890s. It was understood in those sorts of ways, and it's possibly linked to the impact of alcohol withdrawal. It was known as the Blue Devils. But as I say, it's sort of widely understood to mean something like melancholy, I suppose.
Excellent, thanks, Mark. So we've got a bit of a clearer idea there of the history of the blues and what it meant in a universal sense originally. Patricia, what does the blues mean to you when you listen to it?
So for me, prior to this, the blues was just like one of those, really sad song that kind of gives a folky vibe, but there is a story in it. So there is something that you can get from the blues, but it's very, very folky, and I think that's why us as Black people sort of relate to the blues, or as Jamaicans, I should say, so have that kind of relationship to the blues, because folk songs was one of the big things. It's a very big thing in Jamaica. So I sort of see the relationship with the blues and Jamaicans, or reggae, or that kind of music.
So it seems like there's a story involved with the blues in the same way that there is story with reggae, and that's a real factor. And I wonder, Mark, just to break down the making of the blues, I mean, what are the instruments that are predominantly used in blues music?
Well, I think nowadays it's, certainly the guitar and the electric guitar, slide guitar. I think in the early stages, it was things like banjos and piano. I mean, piano still really. But there are so many different genres of blues. And certainly, again, going back to the origination of the blues and in its links with slavery and with field music and with work and with prison as well, it was really about the voice. I think the voice is such an important dimension of the blues, because it is a folk form. It's about telling stories. It's about making oneself understood in the world, sort of placing oneself in a context and telling people what's going on, really. So I'd say primarily it's the voice. It's rooted in the voice, and nowadays, guitars. But the harmonica is also a big part of the blues, I would say.
Excellent. So it sounds like the voice is really the root of it, or the spirit of it. And Patricia, to talk a bit more about the voice, I mean, what is unique about singing or the vocal sound in the blues? What does a singer need to connect to when singing?
Again, it's very relatable to sadness. It's very relatable to anything that's really sad. And for instance, I was listening, for some reason, the Billie Holiday story was on the telly recently, and every song had that slow, really sad, bluesy kind of vibe. And it was just, it's all about, it's a very distinctive sound, yet sad, yet compelling. And I think that's, everything together with the sadness, how it draws you in, the story, the band, the harmonica, the saxophone, everything. It sort of just pulls you in, and the voice has to be really, like I said, distinct.
I mean, I think it's worth saying that the voice is the predominant thing. It's the thing telling the story. It's holding the tune. But quite often the instruments around they'll be emphasizing what's going on with the voice, or they'll be mimicking it, or there's a thing called call and response, which goes, is been used since time immemorial, really, where somebody sings something and a drum or something melodic will then echo it. It will do a response to it. It will answer it, and that's just really just the pure communication of the form. Everything is with the blues, because it is about telling a story. It's all the instruments they rally round to support that, which is fascinating, really. So, some blues guitar techniques for you. This is an acoustic guitar. It's tuned in an ordinary way at the moment, so I can play all regular chords. I'm going to retune it in order to help with this, which is a slide. This is a metal tube, all sorts of shapes and sizes, and they're made out of glass as well. They're known as bottlenecks. But any sort of smooth surface will have this same kind of effect, like this. And you can hear how that's sliding. So I'm going to retune the guitar into an open E tuning. There are lots of different ways to tune a guitar for a slide, but this one is pretty straightforward. So now the slide sounds like this. So I'm not pressing down all the way on the strings like I would do if I was playing a chord. It's just very lightly lying on top of the strings. Now if I add in a shuffle rhythm, we've got the makings of a blues tune. So I'm going to use a common blues phrase I woke up this morning, and I'm going to put that in the context of a simple 12 bar using the slide and whatever words come out of my mouth. Here we go. I woke up this morning, I put on the news. I woke up this morning and I put on the news. Now I can tell you, yeah, I sure got the blues. So, some blues guitar using a slide.
I wonder if the Blue Devil of the blues has been around since the 1890s. What is the impact of the blues had on modern music, the music of today? Mark, that one to you first.
I think it's impossible to imagine music today, certainly contemporary sort of popular music and various forms of folk music without, in fact, even forms of classical music without the blues, because it's such a strong melodic world. So its impact is huge, really. I mean, the example I would use perhaps most recently, which is just totally obvious, is "Human" by Rag and Bone Man. It's basically a field holler. It's just someone singing really strong, really forcefully, telling a story. And everything, it's just a really simple line, but it translates really powerfully. And because production techniques are so good nowadays, it's easy to dress it in a way that suits a modern market, I suppose. But essentially, it's just a blues, really simple blues tune.
I agree with Mark. We're Human. That song "Human," you could hear it in it. I mean, the blues in hip hop is like the rhythm. So the rhythm, the jazz would be the sounds, jazz music would be sound, R&B would be the soul. Do you know what I mean? So I think a little bit of blues is in everything that we do.
Excellent, thank you. Go on, Mark. Yeah.
Well, I think it's also worth saying that at a sort of musical level, there are notes that are called the blue notes. they're slightly different from the Western scale, if you like, the do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do, da, 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 da. Some of those notes are changed very slightly to give it that kind of leaning, lilting, sort of slightly down melancholy sound. And it's to do with the difference between something that's minor, sounding minor and sad, and something that's sounding major and sort of happy. So the blues, in its tune, in the melodies, it quite often plays with that little line that runs between them, messes with our feelings in a way.
Yeah, and clearly gives it that distinctive sound that takes us out of that, I guess, our more familiar Western music, perhaps. If Rag and Bone Man and the likes of them are creating blues-based tracks, or blues songs that are still popular today, I wonder, why do you feel that blues has remained popular all of these years? I might come to yourself, Mark, with that first.
Sure. I think it's accessible for a start. It's, as a form, it's quite easy to assimilate. It's quite easy to take on, to participate in it. And that's partly because it's an opportunity to tell your story. And everyone wants to do that on some level.
And Patricia, to you, why are we still singing and listening to the blues?
I think the blues is full of emotion, and it sort of dwells on love and loneliness. And it's something that we can relate to all the time, even to today. And, so I think because of that, it will forever be around. It will forever be relatable. It will forever be a part of music, because of what it stands for, or the vibe that it gives, or the stories that it tells, and how we can relate to them. And we can always relate to the blues, and we bring it forward to every genre.
And we've already spoken a little bit about the way in which the blues has influenced so much of today's music and bred those other genres. But I wonder, is there a specific link between blues or early blues and modern rap? I'm going to put that to yourself, Patricia. Is there a link between those two genres?
I don't really, because I'm not a rap person at all, so I don't really listen to it. But I think there is a presence, there is a swagger, a tone. So I think it's always present in rap or hip hop. So I think that's my take on it.
Excellent. And Mark, to you, is there a link between early blues and modern rap, or other forms of modern music that draw on it particularly?
Yeah, I think for me, it's anything that's telling a story. Really, it's coming from the same place. So, and it's a form of communication. It's a way of telling your people or your community about where you're at and what's going on. And I think that's as true of drill or hip hop as it is of the blues. I think there's another interesting link, which is when the blues in its sort of more traditional form started to develop, there was a thing called hokum blues, which was also known as the dirty blues. So it was a lot of it was quite rude, quite really sort of garish and sexualized and sort of funny as well. A lot of comedy in it, if you like. But the actual delivery was more or less monotone. It was sort of half spoken. And I think that in terms of how rap is delivered, there's usually only one or two notes or three notes. So there's a real connection there. But fundamentally, it is in that place of, again, telling the story, telling people where you're at, telling people what's going on, how you're feeling.
Here is a track that we've created specially for this episode, which has been written in the style of blues. We paired up one of our project team with someone from our Sounding Out programme to co-create a track. When you're listening to it, see if there's anything you recognise from things we've spoken about earlier in the programme, such as instrumentation.
Take Take me back to the days when the skies were blue, the sun shone every day. I have no fear, 'cause I thought that you'd always be there. But oh, how things have changed. 'Cause life threw that curveball, and baby, you've changed. My baby's gone away, and I don't know where, somewhere far from here. Times have changed and it made us grow apart, but our friendship will remain. 'Cause life threw the curveball and you're not here. Days when the skies were blue, the sun shone every day. I had no fear, 'cause I thought that you'd always be there. But oh, how things have changed. 'Cause life threw a curveball, my baby's not here. The sun shone every day. Know how things have changed. 'Cause life threw the curveball, and baby, it'll go. 'Cause life threw the curveball, my baby is gone. Life through the curveball, and now you're gone.
Yeah. Mark, I know this is the first time you've heard this song, so tell us what stood out to you about it.
I just loved the sound of the voice. I mean, you've got a gorgeous voice, and it's to me, it's reminiscent of B.B. King. Actually, it's got a lovely vibrato to it, and you hold the story really nicely. And the lyrics, they're simple, but they're strong enough to make you think, oh yeah, I know what that's about. I can identify with that. So I mean, I was instantly drawn in to it on that level. But the main thing that did it was just the warmth of the voice. And almost the surprise of hearing the voice as well, which was great for me.
Patricia, you've clearly made a very good classic blues track. And so I wonder, when you were asked to create something in the blues genre, what were the maybe 2 or 3 things you had to either think about or do to ensure it was sounding authentically blues?
So it was definitely the story and sort of the emotions. I had to make it a little bit emotive, and there is that Mark used a word recently that I was looking for that word, but I wouldn't have used it because I didn't know. But it's when he said you lean. So that sort of, that sort of leaning, the sway with the vocals, and maybe I picked that up from listening to Billie Holiday or Diana Ross playing Billie Holiday in the Lady Sings the Blues, because that's my favorite movie. So maybe I picked that up from then. But when I was asked to do it, I thought, blues, what am I going to do? And I remembered that I recently played Motormouth Mabel in Hairspray. And one of the songs that I did, it might have been more modern bluesy songs, but that was what I could relate to. And it was Big, Blonde and Beautiful. And I sort of got that vibe from that, because it was more, it's bluesy, but I think it was more of a modern blues, which would make it more relatable, which would give a little bit more depth to the story itself that I wanted to get across. So I think the whole combination from Billie Holiday right through to that modern twist with in Hairspray, I sort of put them all together, and I think that helped.
Fantastic. Yeah, so really drawing in from the old and the new and connecting them with that story that you've said is so important. It has been a beautiful experience leaning into the blues with both of you. Mark and Patricia, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for watching this episode of Playlists. I hope you enjoyed learning more about this genre of music and hearing some tracks that maybe you haven't heard before. These will give you a greater understanding of the different components that make up this musical style, as well as some ideas for creating your own song. See you next time when we'll be exploring another musical genre.